Hello and welcome to Clipping In, Friday the 15th of December, Sub 2 Series number 10, the final chapter. And today's route came about after a conversation with my neighbour, friend and fellow cyclist Gavin. So, if you don't like this route, please address your letters of complaint to Mr. Gavin. Bradford. Good. Now we've got that out of the way, let's get on with the pedalling. I'm in the area to the south of Bradford known as Moor, and certainly in the late 18th and through the 19th into the middle of the 20th century, this area was dominated by the Moor Iron Works. A combination of local natural resources really led to the rapid growth of the Moor Iron Works. There's some very high quality ironstone, iron ore, quite close to the surface, and there's also, or at least there were, very large reserves of low sulphur coal, which was ideal as the Industrial Revolution gathered pace and they wanted to switch from smelting with charcoal to using coal. Cannon and shot produced at Moor was used in the Napoleonic Wars. I bet Ridley Scott didn't tell you that. And in the First World War, Moor parts were used to make the tracks of tanks. But then, scale of manufacture, demand, economics, by the 1950s Moor production started to fall, and I think by probably the early 70s there was just a very small steel manufacturing unit on this site. And now, marking the site, really all that's left is this admittedly rather spectacular monument, and as the plaque explains, a 30.5 ton rolling mill flywheel from the former Moor steelworks. Wow. I wonder if it's tubeless ready. I do remember as a very little kid, maybe mid-1970s, seeing cooling lakes and some industrial premises around the site of that big wheel. I'm assuming that was the last few remaining traces of the Moor steelworks as it became, and then by the 80s it had all been drained and cleared and re-landscaped. The changing nature of sort of social history and industrialisation and habitation, it's fascinating, it really is, and in a generation or two areas can be completely transformed. There's almost no trace now apart from that big wheel of the Moor Ironworks. It's just become a footnote of history. I'm heading now onto the Spen Valley Greenway, Gav's suggestion, in the direction of Crikey, with a few stops here and there. The Greenway is taking up the old track bed, the route of the former Bradford to Mirfield line. It makes for these parts at least, an exceptionally flat route, very accessible in that respect, and it's also free of motorised traffic. Now, another piece of history that's definitely worth mentioning dates back to the First World War, to August 1916, and the Moor Munitions factory. There was a fire and then a massive explosion, to the extent that houses within a 2-mile radius had the windows shattered. Houses in the more immediate area were completely destroyed and had to be demolished and cleared. But because it came in the middle of the war, slap bang in the middle of the Somme campaign, the government hushed it up. They thought that it would be have a negative effect on war morale, and so the sacrifices and the deaths associated with the fire and explosion were not mentioned for years. And really all we have now is this little memorial plaque saying how 40 people and over 100 were injured here. The railway line carried passenger and freight traffic until the Beeching Axe fell in the mid-60s. That's when passenger services were stopped. But freight trains continued for quite a few years longer. The Greenway, as we know it, was completed in sections. I think you could ride from Moor to Mirfield from around 2001. Apart from a few sections that have where the tarmac's been displaced by tree roots, you can ride it on a road bike, although like all cycleways with trees, you've got to be careful at this time of year of slippery leaves. We're now in the area of all that remains of Cleckheaton railway station. I remember as a little kid, the supermarket over there, which Tesco, used to be a local company called Hillard's, doing shopping and going back to the car park maybe 75, 76 and seeing goods trains on this line. The station was closed before I was born, and it was demolished I think about 71, 72, so I have no memory of it at all. But this is the area of the old Cleckheaton station and marshalling sort of goods yards. But once again, it soon disappears. There's some story that Cleckheaton railway station is the only station ever to have been stolen because when it was decommissioned, I think 65, no more passenger services, it was left in place, and then a demolition contractor around in the early 70s took it all away for scrap. And I think that the eventual court case was had it dubbed as the only railway station to be stolen. Now, of course, being on a tarmacked old railway, a greenway, doesn't mean that you have to sacrifice your views and experience in nature and wildlife. In fact, because of the high traffic volume, the animals around here are exceptionally tame. Let's just approach this wonderful creature here. We might even be able to feed it. There. Isn't that super? We're now in the location of the old Liversedge station. I think it was somewhere on the left here. Sometimes there's a cafe there. I see cyclists, yeah, I see cyclists with their bikes propped up, indulging in a double macchiato with added frosting, as you do. Morning. Oh, you're all right.
Am I in way?
Whoa! Now, being a shared use track, you do have to watch out for things like that. It's not a route where you can come and get on your big gear and put your head down and race it. Some people try, but that's just silly. But for an accessible easy bit of pedalling in company or alone, in any conditions. I think there's something to be said for this kind of route. And now, this might be the only hill on the Greenway. And I get to use my bar ends. Track bed, of course, is on the left. Now there's a pseudo crossroads here. Turning right would go towards Ravensthorpe, and there's also a possibility to link this cycle route, which I think we've seen is number 66, to another one that goes hugging the Calder Valley towards Cooper Bridge, and then connecting with the Bradley Greenway towards Huddersfield. Calder Valley Greenway, there's the sign. Never done that, so I can't speak about it. Normally you can continue the Greenway and join with the canal towpath and then connect with the Calder navigation and go all the way to Horbury. But you can see here, Greenway diversion, and the bridge is closed, which is a shame. I used to use this as a launch pad for mountain biking when I went to go over Foxroyd and Emley. It looks like a few people have opened the door in their own way, but I think there are other barriers stopping you getting to the Greenway, to the towpath rather, from the Greenway. So I think this is journey's end. Time to head back. It's quite mild today. I think it's about 7C, and being in a railway bed, you're out of the wind too, so it's even milder. Now yesterday I went out towards Ackworth, and the first hour from around 9:30 till 10:30 in the morning was probably the coldest conditions I've experienced this winter. There was the thermometer said 3 Celsius, which is one thing, but there was a biting wind. But also, it was the rain. It was a sleet rain falling heavily, completely chilling everything. 3 degrees with that kind of precipitation and wind together. It felt far, far worse, and it was far harder cycling than those sort of idyllic sunshine winter days where it's -1 or -2. Oh, and now I've got to find my climbing legs. And so we're drawing to the end of this ride and the end of the Sub 2 series, number 10. And I think it's been good to close the set with this super accessible, traffic-free Greenway with a little bit of local history thrown in too. I mean, rides, you don't get rides as flat as that one anywhere around here. I know my dad, when he was just short of 80, he'd ride the Greenway at winter because he didn't want to get a chill on his chest. He didn't want to be over breathing on the hills or risk the descents, because falling at that age doesn't bear thinking about. So it's definitely a ride for all, and I think that makes a really good fit for the Sub 2 series. So what I'll do for this ride now, as always, I'll sign off. I'll see you back out on the Yorkshire roads very, very soon. Bye bye.